This here is the Galaxy Z Flip 4, a 4th generation foldable smartphone from Samsung, and while on the surface it may look like just an iterative upgrade over last year's model, that doesn't mean it's not one of the most interesting smartphones you can buy in 2022. I'm Nick Gray, and this is my review of the Galaxy Z Flip 4. Now this may sound a little bit crazy, but Samsung's been doing foldable smartphones for 4 years now. And you might think with a 4th generation device, they might do something a little bit different to change things up. But when you look at it compared to last year's Galaxy Z Flip 3, there's really not much of a difference here. The only real cosmetic difference that you can tell on the outside of the device is that the hinge on last year's device is a little bit taller than it is on the Galaxy Z Flip 4. And the metal rail that goes around the glass on the front and back of these devices is a little bit thinner this time around as well. But as far as the other things go, you do have a cover display on the front, two 12 megapixel sensors for the ultra wide and main camera. And then when you flip things over and look at the phone on the inside as well, you still get the same 6.7-inch foldable display with a 10 megapixel sensor peeking through there. Pretty much the exact same setup as what we got last time. If you've used last year's Flip 3, you'll definitely be familiar with the setup here on the Flip 4. It's a 6.7-inch Full HD Plus resolution panel with a 120 Hz refresh rate with HDR10 support, which means it honestly looks really good if you're watching video or consuming your content, and it is definitely bright enough to be used in direct sunlight. That being said, there is a new protective film that goes over the display that should allow it to be a little bit more durable than it was last year, though I really didn't have any issues with the Flip 3, even though I abused it for 6 to 8 months as I was using it in day-to-day use. But since the display is identical as last year and that hinge mechanism really hasn't changed much, that means the crease that's in the middle of the display that a lot of people really don't like about these smartphones is still quite visible when you have any lights shining on the display. And anytime that you swipe your finger over the middle of the phone, you definitely still feel it. It would have been nice to see Samsung change things up just a little bit this year and switch over to the same teardrop design for the foldable display that a lot of other manufacturers have been using. And while that might not fix the crease on the display completely, it would definitely make it a lot less noticeable and make this phone here just that much more appealing. Now, I know a lot of people do have questions about the durability of the smartphone because of the hinge design and whether or not you can get this phone wet. It does have an IPX8 water resistance rating, which means you shouldn't have any issues with getting the phone wet in the rain or accidentally spilling a drink on it. Though I wouldn't recommend taking it for a swim in the pool, and you definitely need to be a little bit more careful with this device when you're taking it to the beach or simply just out into nature. After about 2 weeks of using this phone, it's already built up some dirt and grime in the hinge, which I can feel when I open and close the device, and that's simply from putting it into my pocket. Where the Galaxy Z Flip 4 truly differentiates itself when compared to its predecessor is the performance. It's running the latest Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which also means it's more powerful than the Galaxy S22 lineup that was released from Samsung earlier this year, with better overall performance and also power efficiency as well. While testing out the device, I did play some of the most taxing games available for Android right now, like PUBG Mobile and Genshin Impact, and was able actually to max out the settings on both of those games, something that you really wouldn't expect from a device that can fold in half. That being said, the thermals on this device aren't exactly the best, so you do have a little bit of throttling sooner than what you would get from other devices that don't fold in half. And that's honestly just the limitation of the foldable design and the thermal dissipation inside of the device. But the overall performance is still really good. When it comes to multitasking, the phone does come with 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is more than enough to keep 8 to 10 apps open in the background and easily switch between them on the fly. In my personal use, that's definitely more than enough, as I typically only use 6 to 8 apps throughout the day. And if I do have an app that does have to reload, that Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 does the trick and opens it pretty much instantaneously. The cover display on the outside of the phone is pretty much identical to last year, but they have added a couple new widgets that you can use here. That being said, I'm still a little bit disappointed with the functionality and its limitations. The first generation foldable Motorola Razr had more customization options back in 2020 than the Flip 4 does today, which is honestly pretty disappointing. It does come in handy if you do want to check your notifications, the time, or the weather, but honestly, that's about it. And as for the software experience on the foldable display on the inside of the phone, Samsung really hasn't changed much here either, other than trying to partner with apps like Instagram to take advantage of the phone's foldable design a little bit better. But these customized app experiences really aren't any better than what you get on a traditional smartphone. As I mentioned already, the cameras on the back of the Flip 4 are the same as what we got last year. You have two 12 megapixel sensors on the back of the phone and a 10 megapixel sensor for the selfie camera. That being said, the user experience that you get with this device because of its unique foldable design means you can take pictures of yourself better than you can with any other smartphone that's on the market. The folding hinge allows the Flip to turn into its own stand, and coupled with the cover display means you can frame yourself anywhere you are. Just place the phone on any flat surface, take a couple steps back, and use the hand wave gesture to trigger the shutter, and you'll be able to take pictures of yourself that you simply never would be able to capture with any other smartphone. And you can even do it with video as well. As for the overall image and video quality, I'd say it's comparable to the Galaxy S21 FE. Shots turn out a little bit oversaturated and low light capture leaves a lot to the imagination. But that being said, the processing here is much better than what we got on last year's Flip 3, which is a step in the right direction. Now, the biggest issue that I had with last year's Galaxy Z Flip 3 was the phone's battery life. And with this phone here, things seem to be a lot better. Samsung's given the device a 3,700 milliamp hour battery, which is a 12% bump in overall capacity, which means you are able to get at least a full hour of additional screen on time when compared to its predecessor. That being said, it's still a far cry from what you can get on other flagship tier devices. On the days that I knew I was going to be out late, I did find myself plugging it in halfway through the day just to make sure I would be able to have a charge throughout the evening. But on the days that I didn't, I typically was able to get around 12 hours of battery life out of the device, but the phone would only be holding about a 5% charge when plugging it in at the end of the night. Along with the increase in battery capacity, the phone's charging speed has seen an increase this year as well, getting a bump up to 25 watts as opposed to the 15-watt charging we saw last year. But it still does take over an hour to get the battery from 0 to 100%, which is honestly really disappointing when you consider the overall capacity of the battery cell itself. As you can see, the Galaxy Z Flip 4 isn't a huge step forward when compared to its predecessor. It would have been nice if Samsung would have given us an upgrade to the cameras or changed things up a little bit with the hinge of the device and the display, giving us that teardrop fold, making the crease less visible than it is now. That being said, the Galaxy Z Flip 4 is still one of the most interesting smartphones that you can buy in 2022, and I think for the price, it's definitely worth it. Now, if you do own last year's Galaxy Z Flip 3, you're probably not due for an upgrade this time around. But if you have been feeling the itch to ditch your traditional slab smartphone and switch over to a foldable, I think the Galaxy Z Flip 4 is definitely the way to go. And that's gonna do it. Thank you guys so much for watching my review of the Galaxy Z Flip 4. If you wanna see my camera comparisons and other coverage of the device, be sure to check out those videos on the channel and don't forget to subscribe as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.